I think that is the common denominator of success. The businesses that are able to adapt faster to market changes and to customer changes, those will win.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Conversation With, short, insightful discussions with CX leaders and innovators. And I'm pleased today to be joined by Alexander Graf, CEO and co-founder of Spryker, a modern platform as a service solution that empowers companies to create winning commerce experiences in B2B, B2C marketplaces. Alexander is also the voice and brains behind Kassenzone, the largest German blog and podcast on e-commerce and digitization, which he launched in 2008. So he's got quite the leg up on Fritz and I, being a full 11 years ahead of us, as well as he's a leader of Spryker's Commerce Talks podcast. He's co-authored the best-selling book called The E-Commerce Book, about a channel that became an industry, with longtime consultant and friend of his, Holger Schneider, I believe is also a colleague of Alex at eTribes, which is one of the leading digital consultancies in Germany, which Alexander also co-founded in 2011. The meat of what I'm getting at is this gentleman is a super experienced, grizzled veteran in the e-commerce world. And today we're going to tackle the topic, adapting, surviving, and thriving in today's e-commerce world, with Alexander Graf. Alexander, it's great to have you here.
Taryn, thank you for this very interesting introduction, and thank you for having me.
Interesting is good. I'm glad you didn't say boring. That's a nice improvement, right?
No, it's not boring at all. It's like many hats, and it's I have many more, but
Yeah,
you stick
I
with
trimmed the
the most
list.
important one.
Yeah, I trimmed the list extensively. Tried to get out what I could. So before we actually dive into the topic, Alexander, tell me a little bit about how you've been the past year and a half. How have you been staying busy? Anything that you want to share?
Yeah, obviously, when all this stuff started, nobody knew what's going to happen. So we also were kind of very cautious for when it comes to new hires or spendings. And then only 2 or 3 months into the crisis, it became very clear that e-commerce or commerce in general will be clearly one of the winners out of this phase. So over the last 1.5 years, where the financing round led by TCV over $130 million. What's happening was a very interesting experience. We started our go-to-market initiatives for the US, for UK, for Nordics, and some other markets, which usually would come with a lot of travel, right? Sitting in a plane and travel to the US or travel to the Nordics or travel to Asia, and none of that was necessary actually. So it was, I think, the first full remote go-to-market expansion from a commerce software provider, and it helped us a lot. So we were able to roll out much faster, to hire more people. Right now, we are hiring 1 to 2 people per day on a global level. So it was a very interesting 1.5 year.
Yeah, and to say you've been busy is an understatement. I think you mentioned no flying. I haven't flown since Fritz sent me to San Francisco a year and 4 months ago. So nice to take a little vacation from it myself.
Yeah, I don't remember last flight I took. I don't even know if it was like for holiday or it was a business flight. I think it was in January 2020. But the whole travel stuff was never the attractive part of my job, to be honest. It was always all about like meeting interesting new people. And actually one of the doubts I had with remote first was actually, will it be possible to connect with new people, especially with new employees, new colleagues, also on the C-level level in our company? And to be honest, it's even easier to connect if you meet like 2 or 3 times a day via Zoom without a mask than it would be in an office environment. So my wife is a pediatrician, and she met her colleague first time after a year without a mask at a private party in our garden. And then it was the first time when she really met her. And when I met my colleagues, which I met over Zoom for a year last week in Berlin, first time, it felt like I meet them every day. I would have said like, "Hi, Terrence, how
Yeah.
are you?" And then we realized, hey, that's the first time we met each other in person for a year or so. But there's no. It's cool. So the proverb, which goes like, culture is made at the coffee machine. That's not true. It's
Right.
made via Zoom now.
Right. Yeah, which is definitely an adjustment, but something I personally appreciate for sure. Now, Alexander, we talk a lot about on our live streams and our sessions about the experience as a consumer. So I want to put you in the seat of a consumer, especially in the last year and a half, I guess, if you want to take a close look.
Mm.
Have you had any memorable experiences purchasing, buying new things, trying new things that you'd like to share?
Yeah, obviously. So as one of the, would say, active stakeholders in the German e-commerce industry, I was also always kind of a very much into the distance buying stuff, and with
Mm,
social distancing, distance buying became like the standard also here in Germany. And even businesses that never offered like a digital channel offered now digital channels. And I'm not talking about online shops. It started with like using short messaging services as a sales channel. So when I ordered a bouquet of flowers at a flower dealer from the next village, it was possible just to order by short messaging service. Other offered it via WhatsApp. So it definitely improved my quality of life. It definitely helped those
mm,
businesses to set up new digital channels and help them to understand how important it is to gather digital data from their customers so they can stay in contact. What was also interesting for me to see is that retailers with brick and mortar, with a brick and mortar strategy, but with at least 10% e-commerce revenue before Corona, they kind of managed it. So their infrastructure was already prepared, already good enough. They had an org chart and teams caring for the e-commerce business. So they were able to manage their sales during Corona. And the ones that never paid attention to what my colleague and I have wrote in the book, or what we are hearing like since 10 years on the keynote stages of this industry, they kind of failed. So it was just like a catalyst for e-commerce the last 18 months, definitely.
So let's talk about Spryker. I mean, of course, you've been extremely busy, as you alluded to before. Tell me a bit about your company, why you founded it, and what market challenges it addresses.
Yeah, so when we started thinking about Spryker, Boris was my co-founder and co-CEO. He was working at a Magento agency, founded one of the biggest ones in Europe. I worked in a lot of Salesforce and Shopware projects, which is the biggest competitor of Magento. And a
Mm,
common theme in our customers project was that like after a year or two, the customer said, "Yeah, we want a feature A, B, C, D, whatever." And from an agency, we always had to say that's not possible. So the system we set up for you was never meant to become a marketplace or to become a subscription business or become whatever. And this culture clash led
mm,
actually to the realization that there must be another solution. Those businesses, they want to compete with the Zalandos of their industry. They want to compete with Amazon somehow. They want to compete with digital first businesses. So let's give them digital first software, which eventually led to the foundation of Spryker, where we said, okay, it's not about building an e-commerce software anymore with lots of features and functions, but building the building blocks, the composable architecture where our customers can build whatever they want without us taking assumptions about their businesses. And I think that is the common denominator of success. The
mm,
businesses that are able to adapt faster to market changes and to customer changes, those will win. And nobody's able anymore to predict
right.
how the customer will buy tomorrow, where he will buy, what will be the payment methods of his choice. And therefore, this very long requirement documents, which you obviously also know, with like 100 pages of requirements, they are kind of dead. And it's now all replaced by speed and adaption. And that was the reason why we founded Spryker, which is now one of the leading systems, especially in the B2B market for commerce.
Mm. And that's a perfect segue. You mentioned the flower shop ordering over SMS or WhatsApp. A saying you have is "innovate or die." Does it feel fair to say also, achieve the actual true digital transformation and be a pioneer or die, or how do you kind of look at that?
So I look at that there's no. I'm often confronted with the question for inner cities. So what should like a small mom and pop store do, like selling shoes or sport accessoires or so? What should like the standard brick and mortar business do? And it all comes down to what is the USP for the customers? Why should he or she buy at your store? What is a channel where you really can offer a better service, a better product experience, a better customer experience than your competition? And in many cases, those businesses cannot answer that simple question. They cannot answer the why the
Mm,
customer should buy there. And for businesses that are not able to answer these questions in a market where everything is happening much faster. So nothing changed actually. It's just happening faster because we are at like kind of a global competition. Even the flower shop competes with what is it called, 1-800flowers.com or whatever. They're on a global competition right now, and therefore there's no choice. It's not about the what to do anymore. It's only about the how. That's actually where the claim comes from,
mm,
innovate or die. So you have to innovate. You have to be in a modus where you are always trying to adapt faster, trying to find a better solution, trying to get get better. And you have to find it like every day. And when we started the consultancy business, eTribes, 10 years ago, more or less, the market searched for other answers. The market searched for answers. Okay, I'd like to invest now. I'd like to find a spot in the a Boston Consultant matrix, or in the Porter Five Forces model, where I have a competitive
mm,
advantage over a very long time. In this time period where you are able to gain a competitive advantage just shrinked. So there is no plateau anymore. There is no time to rest anymore. You have to continuously improve. So that is, I think, one of the characteristic of the digital industry, and that's why there's the only chance to survive, the only chance to get better, the only chance to win is to innovate. And if you
mm.
don't want to innovate, if you don't want to adapt, then you obviously choose dying, right? That is the so it sounds it sounds simplified, but actually I really believe that this is the case. So it's not just something where I'd like to get some likes for on Twitter or LinkedIn. I really believe in that.
And so I think this is great, right? Because focusing on the how to adapt, how to change, how to possibly prepare for the customer of tomorrow. Good thing to keep in mind. But what would you say are the top three priorities for brands that are selling products today in the e-commerce world as a part
Yeah,
of that how?
yeah. So I think one strategic assessment changed over COVID. It's definitely the direct to consumer assessment. So when let's take the average brand like 5 years ago. If we were sitting in a workshop there with them and saying, okay, how do you want to sell? How do you want to reach the customer? They obviously would have opted in for a wholesale / marketplace strategy. We have to sell where the customer is.
Mm,
We don't necessarily need the customer address. We only need to sell where the customer is. That changed. So direct to consumer is kind of the main narrative right now for successful brands, because if you don't control the access to the consumer, you become somehow a logistics company for platforms. Doesn't matter if if you're a logistics company for Zalando or for Amazon or for Alibaba. But this is definitely something that changed a lot in the how perspective. So how to sell is not how can I get the most pallets of my merchandise to Amazon, but how to get many customer data sets. Another how is definitely to understand that out of 10 projects you'd like to realize within the next 3 months or 12 months, most likely 9 are software related. One project is maybe redesigning the logo, right? All the other project is getting better product data,
mm,
getting a faster upload to Amazon, getting a better CM, whatever. So investing more in the tech infrastructure, in tech people, in developers, in product managers, that's most likely your second pillar, I would say, that has massively changed. And the third pillar we just talked about, the understanding that there's no long-term strategy anymore. That even if you found a channel like WhatsApp to sell your merchandise, that might be a strategy that only works for the next 6 months, and that's why you have to be in a constant renovation modus where you have to go over the next 10 bets to reach the customer and to sell even more. That is, I think, what you see now is influencer marketing. It kind of peaked. So the very successful influencers are building their own brands now. They don't need you as a brand anymore. They can build their own brands for whatever. Food supplements or even fashion brands are now built by influencer. And for the, let's say, cheaper influencers, there's now such high prices are demanded that it doesn't make any sense for spending with them. So lots of stuff happened over the last 5 years. So the conversations I have with brands are, I think, are 180-degree change from what we discussed 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I like how you stated there is no period of rest anymore, right? There is no getting ahead and being able to take a deep breath anymore. You have to constantly be innovating, constantly be focusing on that how. You have said, Alexander, in a previous conference, it's about selling better, not better products in e-commerce. How else, you've mentioned being where the customer is. How else can this be achieved? And can you tell us a little bit more about your 90% is just basic pyramid?
Yeah, so let's maybe just trying to understand where this selling better instead of selling better products comes from. I started my e-commerce career at the Otto Group, which was one of the main mail order companies in Europe at this time, 2005, and they still claim they are the second biggest multi-channel company worldwide, but I'm not 100% sure if everyone would agree on this kind of statistic. And in 2008, 2009, we saw a company called Zalando, which just started in Berlin and within like 2 years became in e-commerce more successful, more powerful than the Otto Group was. Also, the Otto Group had all the assets, all the customers, all the logistics asset, all the supplier relations, the financial foundation, everything. And Zalando was essentially selling the same stuff, fashion, more or less. Otto was selling also washing machines and other stuff, but they were selling the same stuff, and the stuff was not better, not even cheaper. So it was not a pricing issue. It was just how they sold it, how they pitched their USP. You can return for free. You're getting a personalized custom experience. You're getting your delivery statement via email within like 2 minutes instead of 2 days. And I remember that time when the head of logistics of Otto pitched in front of like 400 people and said, okay, we are really good, so we are really on a competitive level. And one of my e-commerce peers asked the question, but Jochen, there's now Amazon and Zalando, they're delivering for free within like 24, I think better back at this time, this was for free within 48 hours. And we are still we are still charging €4 for the 5-day delivery, and for the express delivery, which is 48 hours, we are charging €12. So how does that fit with your statement of we are competitive? And then Jochen said, we did a survey with our customers, and for most customers, it's not important. The speed is not important at all. It's just about how accurate we are predicting the time of delivery. And I'm pretty sure the customers did not lie, but the assessment was 100% wrong. So we are now so used to get the stuff tomorrow or the day after tomorrow that when there's like an online shop and he's not offering the stuff we want to buy right now, tomorrow, we are just searching for the next solution. So, and that was all how related. there was no better product, no better infrastructure. It was all how related, and that's why I'm saying, okay, it's really how you sell your products, and not what you're selling. That's why Zalando then later stated they're not a fashion company, they're a tech company, and yeah, most likely this is true. Sorry, I forget the second part of your question. I was kind of worn out with the story where this comes from.
No. It was about the 90% is just basic pyramid.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, and then this discussion went on, especially in the Otto Group and other similar structured companies. Okay,
Mm.
we have to now create a better claim when it comes to return policy, or we have to really nail
Mm.
it on the product detail page, or we have to find the best recommendation engine for implementing this stuff. But that's not true if you look at Amazon, if you look at many other stores. So it's kind of a very basic customer experience when it comes to the shiny front end or the communication experience. But everything works. So you really need to manage that the stuff you're selling, you're offering, the first 1,000 product of each category, they're available now, that the price is correct, that your assortment is, your warehouse inventory data is correct, you're charging the right price, you're printing the right label for free returns for the package. So that's all basic stuff. And
Mm.
companies often focused on the fancy stuff because they said, okay, we are not able to manage to get the return levels into the boxes with the next 24 months, and there's nothing we can do about it. So let's focus on the next checkout features, and
Mm.
that's waste of time. That's the wrong strategy for sure.
And we saw so much about convenience, speed. All of that was so important, especially in the last year and a half, right? Safety, trust. So it's interesting to hear that. I think one thing I wanted to bring up too, as well, Alexander, is you've mentioned a lot about adapting and adapting faster. I know in the U.S., a company that I've been very impressed with is the Dick's Sporting Goods, a major sporting retailer in the United States. And almost overnight, when stores were closed and people weren't allowed to travel inside of the stores, they put up a buy online, pick up in store. Essentially, I think it was a post-it note they put against their door: "Call this number and we'll bring your order outside," like a buy online, pick up at curbside. Have you seen any other very inspiring examples over in Germany and Europe that you'd like to share?
Yeah, we've seen curbside pickup a lot during COVID. One of the most successful curbside pickup providers is Media Market, which is the Best Buy of Europe, and they're very very proud of this strategy, and they want to even nurture this strategy and say, okay, it's very cool to offer this, that people can buy now in the online shop and then come to the store, which from my point of view is the worst of both worlds. You cannot touch the product, but you have to do pick up and delivery yourself. And I think
All
it's
the work? Yeah.
yeah, I think it's something that can be like a bridge into a pure play model, where you don't have the delivery infrastructure yet, where you don't have the drivers yet, but most
Mm.
smart customers, from my point of view, would rather get it delivered. There are many customers that are still opting in for the curbside pickup. So friends of mine running consumer electronic businesses are surprised themselves how many customers are doing this. That even though they are offering
Mm.
a cheap, nearly real-time delivery stuff like this, but so the customer is not acting 100% sane here from my point of view. But the most curbside pickup strategies I've read about, especially in the brick and mortar environment, are doomed. They're still structured around the shop infrastructure, and they're not focused on the customer experience. But we have seen a lot
Mm.
of this, but it was always kind of a backup plan, and even and German is famous for paying cash, and Corona forced a lot of bakeries and smaller shops to offer credit card payments. And now when the bans are lifted, you are now finding stickers in front of the door saying, okay, no credit card payment available anymore. So and the same will happen to curbside pickup, right? So when you're able to get the people back in the store again, you won't offer curbside pickup again. Still, lots of chances for new businesses that will definitely enter the space and really get the customer into a superb pure online experience. But let's see. I'm still surprised every day from what I see from companies and from customers.
So you mentioned D2C before. A lot of brands and companies are putting their efforts here. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I understand manufacturers that are selling very, very niche product where they say, okay, this is so niche, advertising this in Google Ads or in Facebook or whatever, and getting the customer just for, I don't know, some smartphone accessoires into our store. There won't be a repeat buy within the next 2 years. So I understand it. But even those niche cases must think about strategies to get out of the hamster wheel of Amazon or Zalando or Alibaba. Otherwise, they they will lose all their margin in this big platform game. So I think Nike is doing a very good job right now and showing what is possible if you're going 100% direct to consumers, getting rid of a lot of stores. Even own franchise stores are closed. A lot of retail partners are losing direct access to Nike assortment. I think that's the right way to do. And if Nike can do it and afford it, lots of other will follow, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned, well, I guess in the flower example, I was thinking WhatsApp and SMS and these other channels being where your customers are. What digital channels are you interested in when it comes to engaging customers? Anything that's you think around the curve, the adoption that you're going to be watching very closely?
So obviously, I'm really interested in conversational commerce businesses on the B2C side, not so much on the B2B side yet, but in B2C, I really would like to do reorder stuff via WhatsApp or short SMS or other services. And that's where I think AI did a lot of improvement over the last years, where it's really possible now to get a hyper personalized engagement, some level that was never achieved on the desktop or mobile app environment. So that's definitely a channel I'm looking forward to, where a lot of changes will happen. Chat in general is, I think, one of the leading conversion drivers, not only B2C but also B2B. We see it in our industry too, because it's you can have like one agent interacting with like 10 customers simultaneously, and the experience is much better. You can do it while you're doing a phone call, whatever. So this kind of short text exchanges, might it be a chat on a desktop, might it be a WhatsApp, might it be a Telegram, powered by AI, but then obviously the more complex question will be done by a human operator over the next years. That is very interesting stuff. I see that. I'm not so interested so much into the next recommendation engine. I don't think those engines worked quite well. I think that's what most customers complain about when they say, okay, when I bought shoes at Amazon, the Criteo banner, the retargeting banner is following me over the next 5 weeks, order me the
Yes.
same pair of shoes. Yeah, that's actually where desktop, I think the desktop e-commerce is dying now.
Mm. One thing I do want to make sure we talk about quickly as well, Alexander, is I've had several discussions in the States about with C-levels of different companies on the retail side talking about the brick and mortar store, what they believe is going to come of it, the importance of their in-store resources, and their roles evolving as the consumer has changed, right? What do you really see for the future of the brick and mortar commerce?
If it's experience driven, and if there's like really, if it really makes sense for a specific assortment to have this brick and mortar experience, then there's quite a fruitful future for it. If we are talking about the standard H&M, Zara, Inditex experience, that's a big warehouse where the customer is doing pick and pack and logistics. There's no service infrastructure in there. It's just like, okay, I'd like to see how a fabric feels, how it looks on my body, and that's it. But most brick and mortar stores that still rely on a horizontal retail business model where they're just buying third-party merchandise, displaying it for the customers, and selling it for a higher price than they paid themselves. I don't think those can survive in a digital world, because the competition is too tough and customers won't pay the extra price. I met a very interesting example in Germany. I'm not so sure you've ever heard about it. It's translation. It's called Karl's Strawberry Farm. It's actually it's a fun park, a small fun park, and they're selling 5,000 items around strawberries, and it's all about like the experience. You can there's like huge water slides, huge playgrounds. You can go there and spend a full day, and only 5% of the space of such a fun park is reserved for displaying the merchandise, so you can buy stuff, and still 90% of the margin is done by retail. And I think if you think about experience in a brick and mortar environment, that's the way to go. It's not about like one water slide in a big shopping mall where 99% of the space is just retail space, and there's like one small playground sold as experience. That's not the way to go. I would rather think of Karl's Strawberry Farm. Actually, they employ 5,000 people during the summer, so it's not that small.
Yeah, we have a few examples in the New England area, quite like that. A furniture retailer that has a movie theater, other things that make a larger part of the experience of going to that place.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Alexander, I've kept you long enough. I'll give you a chance to add any closing words of wisdom if you'd like. I was going to suggest innovate or die as your closing tagline. Any other words of wisdom for our guests?
Good luck.
Good luck. Okay. Like Alexander Graf, CEO and co-founder of Spryker, founder of the digital consultancy eTribe in Germany, and Kassenzone founder, podcast and blog out of Germany, all about e-commerce and the commerce world. Go check it out. Alexander, thank you so much for your time today.